So, Matt, I don't know if you know this, but back in the 1800s, cowboys actually used to hang lanterns off the stirrups while they were riding and would help them see the trail a little better in the dark. There's a light down there. Yeah. So this is actually considered to be the earliest form of satellite navigation.
And I like it. That's a good one.
Good.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Graveyard. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Adam.
And my name's Matt.
Now, pull up a tombstone or settle into your casket and get comfortable because this is Graveyard Tales. All right, everybody, here we are again. Matt, how you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing all right.
Good.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good.
Good. Yeah, another beautiful day in the graveyard here. We haven't done a Graveyard Tales weather report in a while, so I just have to say, it's starting to cool off a little bit here. I am loving it. Obviously not as chilly as where you are, but it's getting to be where I can wear jeans and boots and not sweat, and I love that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it gets up to around 70 here. It's done that for about the last week. Today it rained all day. It rained all weekend. So, but we've been weeks without any rain.
Oh yeah.
So we needed it, but yeah, it's ushered in a little bit of the I think it was 44 degrees when I got up this morning.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
So when I went to let the dogs out and the sun hadn't even started to come up,
well,
I'm telling you,
it's been getting
glass.
Yeah, it's been getting chilly here at night, so we've been able to sleep with the windows open. And the other night, Nash always sleeps with Michael in his room.
Yeah.
Well, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I hear Nash in the other room go, "Ho, ho," that beagle bark, and I'm like, "Crap! I know what that means. That means he's got to go out." And
he's got to go.
He rarely does this, so I get up and turn the alarm off, let him out. Well, I'm standing there at the door in just my MeUndies, nothing else, and I am freezing. I have to keep like cracking the door. Nash, get in the house, and then close it because if I had stepped out, things would have shriveled and it would have been bad. But it was chilly. Before we get too far off track, I'll say go check out the Podbelly Network at podbelly.com. You can find a list of shows that we're happy to be associated with, and you can find some tips and tricks on podcasting. While you're on the internet, searching for stuff, do a couple things for us. Go check out our sponsors. Go in the show notes of our episodes, find our code, get you something for the holidays. It's coming up quick, and it'll be here before you know it. So try to do like I do and order online. Get stuff. You can get stuff from our TeePublic site. You can get stuff from our sponsor sites. Have it shipped to you. Avoid the crowds. You'll help out Graveyard Tales. It'll be great.
Yeah.
Also, go over to patreon.com/Graveyard Tales. Sign up to become a patron. That is another way that you can help us out. And I just saw a thing today that Patreon is making it easy for you to gift Patreon subscriptions. Finally. They finally are doing that. I haven't looked into it too much, but I just got the information from Patreon that you can gift Patreon subscriptions. So that is a great gift idea for people. Yeah. You can get them our $10 a month level, and that will get them ad-free audio and video versions of the show when we have ads. That gets them the bonus episode every week, and that gets them our second show, Side Quest, where we do a little bit of everything and we talk about our personal lives and all that kind of stuff. Or you can do a $1 or $5 and you'll get a bonus episode every week. Our $5 gets the audio and video version of that bonus episode. Our $1 just gets the audio, but there's always a bonus episode for every level. So go over there, patreon.com/Graveyard Tales, sign up to become a patron. Before you get into it, Matt, I just have to say, we got back from the desert a couple days ago, so that's why my voice is the way it is.
Yeah.
So I apologize if you're going, what is wrong with Adam's voice? It sounds weird. It feels weird, and at least we weren't recording 2 days ago because I could barely talk 2 days ago. I don't know what it was about Nevada dryness, but it dried me out so much that my lips got chapped in the first day. I was shriveling up because I'm used to this humidity. And I was a withering petunia
like
in Nevada.
SpongeBob when he goes without water.
Basically, that was me in Nevada. So I apologize for my gruff voice. I think it dehydrated my lungs too somehow. I don't know. But all right, Matt. So why don't you tell us, what are we talking about tonight, brother?
All right. So tonight, our show is going to take us all the way to Sweden. I'm not 100% sure we've done any haunted Swedish places.
I don't think we have.
I know that Adam has not, he's not had to try to pronounce any Swedish
Exactly.
places.
And I think Matt picked this just to make me say some of these words. He just wanted to hear my accent say some of these words. So y'all enjoy it.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Mine are all fairly easy too.
Mm-hmm. Bragger.
But in Sweden, there is this tiny little village of about 50 people. Okay, it's called Borgvattnet, and it is home to what has been called Sweden's most haunted house.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they've had this accolade since about 1947, and not only that, this small town has also been awarded the honor of having the highest number of ghosts per capita in Sweden.
That's great.
So the number of ghosts per people, it's a much higher ratio there than anywhere else in the world.
I love it.
So tonight, Adam and I are going to discuss the Borgvattnet Vicarage.
Right.
And I'm this place is it's very different.
Mm-hmm.
Not because of it being in such a small town, because of the people that actually resided here.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it really unique, and we're gonna kind of get into that. And why maybe this little place would have been so haunted. So
yeah, Matt, I wanted to do a Swedish joke to open the show. So I was looking up Swedish jokes, and the only one that I would have done is one I've already done.
Oh, really?
Because for some reason, Swedish jokes are really offensive. And I don't know why. Maybe y'all can explain it to me, but every one of them I read and I went, oh, I'm not saying that. Oh, I'm not saying that. But the one I would have used, even though I've already used it, I'll tell you now. What is the best thing about Sweden?
I don't know.
I don't know either, but their flag's a big plus.
That's right.
Yep.
I remember it now.
Yep. So that just to double up on that joke since we're talking about Sweden.
That's pretty good. Pretty good. But this place is pretty active.
Yeah.
And the other cool thing, and we'll talk about this later, you can actually go and visit it. It's not like, so remote nobody can get there, anything like that. They encourage visitors. So
right. So as we always say, go check our sources down at the bottom of the show notes. You can find where we found all the information, and you can keep doing research. But I will tell you this. It is so hard to find any history on the vicarage or the town of Borgvattnet or anything because it is such a small town.
Right.
So I scoured all of the sources that I could find to get the little bit of history that I have for you. So this will be an experience-heavy show. Some of y'all are going, thank God. No, there's not a lot of history. Some of you fellow history buffs like myself might be a little disappointed at the length of it, but I apologize. Did the best I could. It was such a small town that I was having so much trouble finding. I mean, I was texting Matt going, crap, dude. I can't find anything on this.
He's messaging me going, man, he goes, this is going to be your show right now.
Mm-hmm. This is going to be a Matt heavy show, but like I said, Matt picked this, I think, simply to make me say some of these words. So I'm going to do my best. I looked up how to pronounce them, but obviously I don't have a Swedish accent, so they're going to sound weird. They're going to sound like a Texan trying to say Swedish words, but that's what it is. So let's look at the town a little bit. Now, Borgvattnet is a tiny little town in the northeast of Jämtland, Sweden. And when I say tiny, I mean tiny. Borgvattnet.
It's little.
It's little. It's one of the smallest towns in Sweden, if that tells you anything.
What's amazing is it's one of.
One of, yeah.
Not,
it's not
like the smallest by,
yeah.
It's
one of.
I mean, it's bizarre.
And it may have been the smallest, but I'll talk about it. It's grown a little bit. Now, it lies east of the Swedish city of Östersund. So if you know where that is, I don't, but I'm not from Sweden, but it lies east of that. Now, the village sits in a very rural area of Sweden, and historically, it's been sparsely populated because it was really difficult to reach until more modern transportation methods and networks were developed. So it kept the village pretty isolated for much of its history. And like Matt was saying, you can visit it now, but if you'd have gone 100 years ago, it would have been nigh impossible to get there.
I mean, especially these northern towns. We talked about one time there was some place like in Norway that is the absolute farthest north you can go on a commercial flight.
Right.
Okay. When you start hearing about those kind of places, you think, why do people go there anyway?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if I get this image of like, you need snowshoes. I've never thought, well, you know what? I think I need to get a pair of snowshoes, ever.
Yep.
Or go somewhere where I would need to buy said snowshoes. I think you might have to if you went here.
I think so. I would actually have a use for those boots that I want to get. I don't know if you've seen them, but they've got like built-in crampons on them where the bottom of them like flips out.
Dude, those are awesome.
I want a pair. There is no reason in Texas for me to have those.
Yeah,
however, I feel like they would help in mud too. I don't know why, but I feel like I could convince myself that they would help out in mud. And so I could get me a pair just so my shoes can flip. But for you living in Borgvattnet, if you do get a lot of ice during the winter, this is a good product to get. Get these boots that, hashtag not a sponsor. So I'm not saying their name, but they flip out and you've got spikes on the bottom of your boot and then you can flip them back closed.
Which, you could use either to like get around in this kind of icy terrain or as a weapon.
Yep, for kicking some butt.
Dude, kicked me in the face and I've got all these spikes, sticking in my face.
Look like I got hit by a porcupine. Now, as Matt was saying, this tiny village only has about 50 people living there. Now, I found some discrepancies on that.
Oh.
So about 50 people is what a lot of places say, but some say that the records after 2022 show that there was about 65 people there. But they're saying in 2024 that the village now has a couple hundred residents. And they, I think the tourism, which I'll mention in a second, is helping out, bring people to the town. But as far as the information I could find, it has anywhere between 50 to 200 people, which is still tiny.
I wonder if I could go up there and like open a Best Buy or something. You know?
You might be able to.
I mean, I'll be their Amazon delivery guy.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I guarantee you wouldn't be that busy, but maybe you could deliver the boots with the spikes on it.
Well,
you could be the
people they got to be able to get, stuff too.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true. Now, besides we'll stick with 50 just for the sake of consistency, but
we talk like this place is like super isolated. I don't know that it is.
It's not anymore.
It may be like 10 miles from like a huge city. I don't know.
It's not super isolated anymore, but we'll stick with 50 people living there just for consistency's sake. Since when the
events we're going to talk about happened, that's what it was.
Yeah. There was about 50 people there. Now, besides those people, at this town, some of the things they have is a church and a vicarage, which the vicarage is what we're talking about tonight. But over the last few years, there have been people moving in from Germany and the Netherlands. So the town's starting to slowly grow some. There have even been new businesses that have started to open there. Yeah. So, Matt, you might actually have a way to open a Best Buy.
There we go. All right.
Borgvattnet. The Borgvattnet Best Buy. Now, despite the small developments that have come to the town, it remains relatively unchanged compared to a lot of the larger towns in Sweden. So, if you go to more metropolitan areas of Sweden, it's going to be like any town you're used to. The architecture will be a little different, and obviously the language is going to be different from what you're used to, but you'll recognize things. You go, oh yeah, that's their supermarket, that's the church, this is their entertainment district. But in Borgvattnet, it's remained fairly unchanged over all these decades. And it still has a super small town feel. And I love that because Ashley's granddad lives in a town of 200 people. That's how many are in his town. And I love it because you can drive down the road and only pass one car. Where,
yeah.
When you live where I do, you pass more than that getting out of your neighborhood. So
that's right. I don't even have to leave home and I can pass a dozen cars.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But even though the population of the town is small, there are people coming to the town on, doing the tourist thing to see this vicarage. So historically, the town's economy was based on agriculture, forestry, and small-scale farming. So for most of its history, the residents of the town were self-sufficient, and they had some small trades with neighboring towns, to get things maybe that they couldn't grow or farm. But many of the houses in the town are farming estates because that's what they had to do. So you go into this town, and that's the way it is with a lot of these small towns. The houses there are farms. The families work on them. And that's what it is in Borgvattnet. Now, in the center of the village is what they call a beautiful church. And I'll tell you, it is a pretty church. It was built back in 1782. And as it is in many small Swedish towns, they say the church is the focal point for the village. So it's the central place for community gatherings, religious ceremonies, and social events. Now, we're talking about the vicarage tonight because they say it's the most haunted town or the most haunted place in Sweden, like Matt was saying. So the most recent owners of the vicarage have actually turned it into a bed and breakfast. Mm-hmm. I want to stay there. I really do. I think it would be really cool to be in a really small town in Sweden and be staying at a haunted house.
Oh, yeah. And I'm telling you, if you look at the photos of this place, if you pick one that doesn't have snow in it, because if you pick one where it's covered in snow, it looks like a Christmas card. Mm-hmm. But when you pick one that's like on a cloudy day, like there is a really good photo out there of this place with clouds in the sky in the background, and it looks scary as hell. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I mean, just looking at it from the outside, you're like, I don't know if I want to go in there or not.
Yeah, there's something ominous about it, but I do think it would be cool to stay there.
Yeah. Bright sunny day, looks fine. You know, cloudy, getting a little dark, spooky.
Yeah, yep. Now, the vicarage itself was built back in 1876. Now, historically, in most of the world, that's not that old.
Right.
But, you know, it's quite old for America. And we've talked about that before. In North America, a couple hundred years old is crazy old for our buildings.
Yeah, exactly.
But you go to other parts of the country and they're laughing at a couple hundred years old because they've got 500-year-old houses. They've got a 1,000-year-old castle. You know, so 1876 really isn't that old in comparison to some of the other places there. But originally the vicarage was used as the residence of the local priest and his family. You know, it was part of the church's functioning infrastructure. So it would house clergy members. It provided a base for religious and social administration in the area. And the village itself is rich in Swedish folklore. They say it's particularly rich in stories involving spirits, ghosts, and nature-based legends.
Mm-hmm.
So many of these local legends are tied to the church and the surrounding forest. And stories about the supernatural in this town were passed down, you know, orally in the oral tradition from your granddad telling you scary stories about the church or the forest just outside the church or the vicarage or whatever. And this folklore still has quite an influence in the area today, especially with the vicarage's ghostly reputation.
Mm-hmm. You know, and it was one thing that was so funny is I'm reading a lot of these articles and they're referring to these guys as the vicar, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'd find, you know, other articles that would use the term priest, but it reminded me of an episode of Friends where Joey finds this romance novel that Rachel is reading, and it says something about the vicar, you know, comes in and everything, and he keeps going, "You're reading porn, you know, that's porn," and so she comes in. This is when Joey and Rachel were sharing that apartment, and she comes, and Joey jumps out, and he's got on like a chest protector and like a mask, and he's holding a hockey stick, and he's wearing hockey gloves. She's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, I'm a vicar. And she goes, "Do you know what a vicar is?" And he goes, "It's like some type of goalie, isn't it?" So every time I've heard somebody say something about a vicar, I was like, "Yeah, it's some kind of goalie, right?"
Yeah, pretty close. Pretty close.
It's not a goalie, okay?
No.
it's just another term for priest. And a vicarage, much like a monastery is where monks live, the vicarage is where the priest for the church would live. And like I said, it was 1947 before it developed this reputation as being, you know, such a haunted place.
Right.
But that's not when it started, okay? The reports of paranormal activity in the vicarage date back to 1927, okay? And this is when the resident vicar, Niels Hedlund, reported some pretty weird stuff going on. Most specifically, he watched his laundry being torn off the line.
That would be kind of wild.
Kind of weird. And tales of supernatural events continued in the ensuing decades, with almost every new vicar or their family or their guests claiming to have some paranormal experience. So let's talk about Headland. We're going to talk about each one of these vicars that had a weird experience there. But Headland's parents, Marta and P-E-R, that was his father's name. They served as the priest and priestess in the vicarage when Niels was a young teenager. In 1907, Marta died during childbirth in the house. So Headland's father, was so distraught at losing his wife that he couldn't bear to be away from her. Some people say he kept her body in the house for a period of time because the ground was too frozen.
Oh, yeah.
Other people say he just buried her in the backyard. He did eventually bury her in the backyard. We don't know how long, what transpired between that. But the locals found out about it. And they came to him and they demanded that he go and bury Marta in the cemetery.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. But so consented. He said, okay, I'll move Marta's body. But the next day, the entire Headland family had disappeared, along with Marta's body.
Really?
Yeah, and they had like 8 kids. Niels was like their second oldest, so he would have been probably like 12 or 13.
Mm-hmm.
And they had him all the way down to a newborn. So this wasn't like, a couple of adults and a kid that just disappeared. This was a large family and a dead body.
Yeah, that's
just up and took off.
That's crazy.
It wasn't necessarily mysterious, other than they didn't tell anyone. Nobody knew they were leaving. This next day, they were all gone.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Niels would eventually become a priest and come back to live at the vicarage after his father died. And this is when he witnessed the strange event of his laundry being pulled from the line. So in a letter, Headland wrote that there was no wind that day and that he could see that the laundry was actually being pulled. Like it wasn't just falling or blowing off.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought, maybe it was a ghost that needed a new sheet or something like that,
Mm-hmm. Had holes in it.
That's right.
The original one.
But just 3 years later, in 1930, another priest named Rudolf Tarngen saw a phantom lady in the building's great hall. Now, Rudolph says that the lady was dressed in gray, and he reported that she walked slowly toward him through the big hall, but then turned and went into the expedition room, which the expedition room was the office where the vicars would work. So he wanted to talk to her and ask her what she was doing inside his house. But when he got to the expedition room, there was no one there. Now, Otto Lindgren and his wife moved into the vicarage in 1936. They never saw an apparition, but they had a lot of paranormal experiences in the house. They would hear footsteps walking throughout the house, and doors were opening and closing as if someone was moving from one room to another. So you'd get a door open, and then footsteps, and then another door would open, just like somebody's walking through the room.
Which makes, I've always wondered about that. If the spirit can move stuff in the physical realm,
right?
Why is it unseen? Is it intentional that it can't be seen? Or are we just unable to see that wavelength of light? Yeah. Where maybe dogs could or cats can. Yeah. I've always wondered that if they can physically alter stuff, is it their choice? Or if it's a stone tape type thing, is it just that we can't see the wavelength of light that they're in?
So I have a theory about this. So apparitions, you see like people report seeing a Civil War soldier, at an old battleground. Those are more stone tape-ish. Okay. So you're seeing a repetitive action, being played out. That's why it doesn't seem to matter if there's a wall or a door or a staircase. They're moving through what would have been their reality without any idea. It's a non-intelligent thing. But when you have activity like doors opening and closing, things being moved, you're seeing indentions and cushions where it looks like somebody is sitting. Those are more of the intelligent hauntings, like we would refer to. They realize in some capacity that there is another person there. And they move about the house as they would normally, even if it's changed. Adam, with what we do and the research we do, you and I are both kind of geared towards learning new things. And we have a lot of different interests. And, my family is that way too. My mom is kind of an artist. She likes to quilt, all kinds of things. And our newest sponsor is going to make a fantastic Christmas gift for her.
Right.
And I'm talking about Masterclass. Now, for those of you that have heard about Masterclass and not really sure, it's online classes that you can take yourself or you can give as a gift. And right here at the holidays, these make a fantastic gift.
Oh, heck yeah.
For that person on your list. My mom thinks Joanna Gaines hung the moon. When it comes to design, okay, she loves her. I'm going to get her the class that Joanna Gaines has.
Right, yeah. And with Masterclass, your loved ones can learn from the best to become their best. Masterclass is the only streaming platform where you can learn and grow with over 200 plus of the world's best. That's why Wirecutter calls it an invaluable gift, and it really is. You can gift unlimited learning. Learn from any Masterclass instructor anywhere on a smartphone, a computer, smart TV, or even in audio mode. Now, here's the thing, like Matt was talking, we love learning. Well, Michael is an artist, and they have classes on everything from evaluate your fashion and personal style to explore architecture and sculpture and telling stories through photography. So that's something for him. And then for me, I'm a music nerd, as you all know, and they have classes that Metallica does. They've got one on country music that Reba McEntire does. It's amazing what they've got on there. And the classes really make a difference. 88% of members feel that Masterclass made a positive impact on their lives. And Matt mentioned it. I think it would be a perfect gift for the holidays. If you've got somebody that wants to learn more about something, deepen their knowledge of something, whether it be science and technology, outdoor adventures and events, music, like I mentioned, art and design, film and TV. They've got some on film and TV if you're looking for that. They got everything. Plus, there's no risk. Every new membership comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if for some odd reason you're not as excited about it as we are, then you can get your money back. Give your loved ones a year of learning with Masterclass. Now, Masterclass always has great offers during the holidays, sometimes up to as much as 50% off. Head over to masterclass.com/graveyard for the current offer.
That's right. You get up to 50% off at masterclass.com/graveyard. That's GRAVEYARD. Masterclass.com/graveyard. So I don't know if I'm right. It's just a theory.
It makes sense.
Those are the ones that you don't see. You don't hear people talk about, I saw an apparition open a door.
Yeah.
The door opens and closes of its own volition, or I see an apparition that just kind of floats across the room.
And floated through the door.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So whatever spirit they might have been experiencing during Otto Lindgren's time, it must have been aware, that it was inside of this building and it would open and close the door like it would have done in life. So there you go. And that's why you hear the footsteps.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be visible, but it may be, may have enough energy that it can touch and move, and it's going the floor is going to react to it.
And interact with our reality.
Exactly. So the Lindgrens they decided, well, let's welcome our visitor. But nobody would be there. People coming to the vicarage was not an uncommon thing. I mean, it wasn't like these people, they were hermits.
Right.
People came to the local priest with, questions or problems, or just to visit, to bring food or whatever. So having visitors there and then having guests come through and stay there was a very common thing. So, the fact that somebody may have just walked in the front door wasn't just totally unheard of.
Right.
You're in a small village. You know everybody. Everybody knows you.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody may just walk in. It's not really like, if you look at the pictures of the inside of the vicarage, it's not like you're just walking into somebody's living room. It's set up in a manner of, this is an official residence, like going into the White House or something,
Yeah.
So one day, Mrs. Lindgren had a really strange encounter while she was in the kitchen. She was home alone one day, and she started hearing music coming from behind a closed door. So she opened the kitchen door, and the music suddenly stopped. Then the same thing happened again later when Otto was at home. So again, they heard music. This time the music was in the kitchen. But when they went to check it out, the music suddenly stopped. Okay. Now, this next one isn't a vicar. This is Inga Floden, and she was the diocese secretary. Now, she stayed over at the vicarage one night in 1941 while she was on a business trip. So she slept in the guest room and says that she woke up at 3 a.m. feeling as if she was being watched. But then things changed, and she began to see an apparition of 3 ladies watching her from the couch opposite her bed. When she turned on the light, the ladies were still there, but she noticed that she could see right through them.
Oh, that's weird.
So they weren't solid.
Right.
But, how many stories have we heard where somebody turns on the light and it goes away?
Mm-hmm.
Inga says when she turned on the light, she could still see them, but then she knew that they must have been spirits because she could see through them.
Yeah, that's abnormal.
Yeah.
That's quite out of the ordinary.
Yeah, it's not something we typically hear. But Inga says that she had plenty of time to get a good look at them. She said one lady was dressed in black, One lady wore a purple dress, and the third lady was wearing gray. And all three looked like they were kind of sad, especially the lady in gray. Two of them had their hands in their lap, and the third one was knitting. At some point, Inga must have dozed off again. And the next day, she didn't say anything about it, but she would later admit that she wasn't scared, just surprised.
That would be a surprising thing.
Yeah. I too would have been surprised.
Right. You're not alone in the surprise.
So much later, after this happened, Inga had a conversation with Pastor Gunnar Laufenmark, and she told him about her experience, and she said she knew long before this became public knowledge about the spirits in the Borgvattnet pastoral ministry. So she had heard a lot of these stories. Now, you got to remember, these guys are priests.
Yeah.
They don't openly discuss ghosts, especially not with their parishioners. Okay? This is, we're not going to start spreading these kind of stories. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All we're going to do is cause a bunch of panic. So, but they would speak of them with other vicars and within the network of the local diocese. These stories would circulate.
Mm-hmm.
She would later write a letter and testify about her experiences. And that guest room where Inga stayed is often referred to as the crier's room.
Like crying lady?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Now, Vicar Eric Lindgren moved into the vicarage in 1945, and he started to experience weird things immediately. He says on his first night, it was as if heavy furniture was being dragged from one side to another in the room above his head. This was very surprising. These Swedes, man, they get surprised. It surprised Eric because his furniture hadn't even arrived yet. So the upstairs room was empty.
Yeah.
And he's hearing all this furniture moving. When, of course, he went up there and he saw that all the rooms on that floor were empty. So Eric started to keep a journal of all the strange things that he was experiencing. So later on, he bought a rocking chair and he put it in the vicarage. And, nothing, no big deal. He just bought a rocking chair. He's going to sit and rock. One night when he was reading a book sitting in the rocking chair, he was pushed out of the chair so violently that he fell to the ground.
Really?
Yeah. Now,
I don't mean to laugh, but that it's
well,
slightly humorous.
We've heard stories about ghosts and rocking chairs before.
Mm-hmm.
But when Eric got up and tried to get back in the chair, he said it was if he was blocked from it and fell again.
Really?
And then the rocking chair started to move on its own as if somebody had sat in it, like pushed him out and then sat down.
The ghost is saying, "Get out of my chair, dude."
Exactly.
I have taken this chair.
This is my seat. But Eric says he never sat in it again.
Well, yeah.
Either because he didn't want to or he was afraid of getting pushed down again.
Either way.
Yeah, I would have gotten rid of said rocking chair.
Yeah, that's if you're not going to sit in it, why are you keeping it?
Yeah.
I guess for the
And
for
you
the
got to
spirit?
tell all the guests that come, don't sit in that chair.
Right, yeah.
This is not for humans to sit in.
Yeah, this is for past humans to sit in.
So, but Eric, he did not shy away from talking about this stuff. But as I said, it wasn't their normal practice to discuss these kind of things. So, like I said, they were usually only talked about in small circles. That was until 1947, when a journalist got wind of the stories and decided that he wanted to go investigate. So he requested an interview with Eric Lindgren, who by this time was convinced that there were ghosts, in Borgvattnet.
Yep.
And he had already begun putting together what he called a scientific investigation of the place after years of ghosts. So, as a priest, he was fully convinced. He got pushed out of a dadgum rocking chair and then never was able to go back and sit in it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd
that would convince
too.
me.
Yeah.
But the newspaper, with Österlunds Posten, published Eric's interview on December 4th, 1947. And in this interview, he talked about hearing footsteps, the constantly blown out candles, and the fact that he sometimes would bump into an unseen person.
That's got to be weird.
Yeah. So you're walking through your house and then, oh, excuse me, I'm terribly sorry.
Yeah. Oops. Sorry. Oops.
I didn't see you there.
Yeah. Literally. Where did you come from?
Man, that's got to be an odd experience. That feeling of bumping into someone and it startles you, but nobody to be standing there.
Right. To bump into nothing. I mean, maybe that's what happens when you're walking and you trip over the floor. I know you've done it. I do it quite often. Nothing in the floor.
Right.
And it's a flat floor. There's not a bump, but for some reason you trip.
Exactly. Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. It's a ghost that's like sticking their foot out and tripping you or something.
Yeah.
They're just
especially
messing with you.
If you're walking past a rocking chair,
Yep.
that guy, man, he's not a people person.
Rocking chair ghosts seem to be rude. They really do.
But I think this shows with the other experiences that whatever spirit was there had a physical presence. I mean, opens doors, hear footsteps, moving things, bumping into people, pushing people out of chairs. Whatever spirit or spirits, inhabited Borgvattnet, they had some definite physical characteristics, even if they went unseen.
Right.
So he told the journalist that he would hear footsteps in the garden that were coming toward the house because they had to go across this little wooden bridge, but there was never anyone out there. Now, his interview was pretty controversial, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Mainly because clergymen just didn't discuss ghosts, especially in 1947. So he claimed he always felt uncomfortable in the expedition room, which was his office, because he always felt if someone was looking over his shoulder. Sometimes he would even sense a person sitting next to him, which made it impossible to work. I mean, you're sitting there trying to work, you're writing, Sunday sermon, and it feels like somebody is just sitting right there next to you.
Yeah, looking over your shoulder,
Kinda
judging your writing.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Wait
for Sunday,
you've
man.
already taken the rocking chair, man. Come
Right.
on.
Give me my desk. Good grief.
But Eric says that eventually he just started to get used to all of the activity in the house. So after the article was published, the vicarage was immediately nicknamed, and here's mine, okay? Spookprastergarten. Well, how about that?
It sounds good to me, but
it literally means ghost vicarage.
Yeah, it sounds good to me, but like with mine, you probably got somebody from Sweden going, dude, come on, that was awful.
Well, I've got umlauts and all kinds of stuff in this, and I know I'm pronouncing them wrong. I've gone to look, and I'm like, I stick the little R's and the wrong emphasis on these, but you get the point, okay?
Yep.
Ghost Vicarage is what this place got nicknamed, and it's kept that reputation until the present day. So different rooms in the vicarage had different activity, okay? And that's true today. So let's talk about the different rooms and what happens in each one. So the yellow room. The yellow room, they believe, was probably the room in which Marta died, okay? The priestess that died during childbirth. Guests of the bed and breakfast see shadows in this room, and sometimes people feel someone is pulling at their clothes. Also, various guests have claimed to see a dent on the bedspread as if someone is sitting on it. We've heard that a lot with the haunted hotels. People, will experience that indention in the bed. So the blue room. People who have spent the night in the blue room claim to have been woken up by the sound of heavy furniture being moved around. So, Eric said he heard all this furniture moving around. So the blue room is where this occurs. There's also a ghost in the blue room that likes to pull bed sheets off people in the middle of the night. Now, this is another one we've heard about with haunted bed and breakfasts and hotels. Why you got to pull the sheets off?
Right.
I mean, that just seems like it's just rude, know?
Yeah, and it's unnecessary. It really is.
But if I'm in bed and I'm asleep and the sheets are violently ripped off of me, I'm going to wake up and pay attention. And it goes, we've talked about this recently about the scratching thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get your attention.
Right.
And nothing else seems to be working. So if I do something like yank the bed sheets off in the middle of the night while you're asleep, you're going to pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, for sure.
And maybe that's what that is. Because it doesn't seem to be associated with any other interaction. So, I mean, but yeah, I mean, you wake somebody up like that, they're going to be like, what in the world is going on?
Yeah.
Okay. And they're going to get up, stir around and look to see what's going on. The sound of a baby screaming is also heard here. And I use that, not a baby crying, not a baby laughing. It says a baby screaming.
That is scary.
For all of our listeners that are parents, you know that you cannot sleep through a baby screaming.
Mm-mm.
And that would be awful. I mean, just awful. I'd be like, man, I can deal with the ghost, but I can't deal with this baby screaming ghost in here. It's just too much. I'll go to the yellow room, just get me out of this blue room.
I'll move, for Pete's sake, just stop.
Yeah. Visitors also report feeling very sad and depressed in this room. Now, the pink room. Now, at the end of the 19th century, a 19-year-old pregnant girl was supposedly locked inside this room. It says that she was a disgrace because she was not married and probably got pregnant by a priest. And she's the disgrace.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Well, what year was this?
Well, it says at the end of the 19th century. So it's got to be late 1800s.
Yeah, okay. Well, that makes sense then.
Right.
They would blame her. So.
But when the child was born, it was either a stillborn or it was killed right after birth. The baby was buried at the north side of the house, just outside of the pink room. Both mother and child haunt this room, and the sounds of screaming, a baby crying, and a small shadow figure have been seen here. So, my advice, don't stay in the pink room.
No joke.
And of course, when my kids were growing up, of course, I've got 4 girls, they would have all been like, we want to stay in the pink room.
Mm-hmm.
Like, sorry.
No, you don't.
Again, we're going to the yellow room, please.
Right.
I'm like, blue room isn't so bad. Pink room, I'm not going.
Yeah, we can deal with the blue, but
now the expedition room. Remember, this is the room that the vicars used as their office.
right. Yeah.
Now, most recently, a tall, dark male figure wearing a hat has been seen in the expedition room. There are strange images in the mirrors. There are singing radiators. I couldn't find exactly what a singing radiator was. So I'm guessing it makes some unusual sounds that a radiator wouldn't make.
Yeah,
But
it must.
there are cold spots and there are strange light reflections in the expedition room. So these are all fairly unique to these individual rooms, which is also, kind of it's out of the ordinary. I mean, you hear like, well, that room is haunted. But if we're talking about an entire house that's haunted, usually it's not. You get something different in each room that you go to.
Mm-hmm.
There's some similarities typically, but I mean these are very unique hauntings depending on what room you're in the vicarage. Now, in the 1970s, a local entrepreneur named Eric Branholmes spotted an opportunity and transformed the house into a bed and breakfast. So this place has been a bed and breakfast for a long time. A decade later, an outsider priest named Tor Forsland. Let me try that again. Tor Forsland. He heard about all the hauntings and all the stories around this vicarage, and he didn't like it. So he decided to put an end to what the Borgvattnet locals had already, decided this is what we got. We've got a haunted vicarage. Now, this guy became known as the ghost priest, and the exorcist offered to rid Borgvattnet of all of its ghost problems once and for all. So he felt very strongly that the village's ghosts were a dangerous symptom of provincial occultism. Okay? That, we're talking about a time, that there wasn't a spiritualism and all that stuff. It all kind of came and went. But if you remember, at least in the U.S., that around the mid to late 70s, early 80s, you had what they called here as the satanic panic.
Yeah.
Okay. You didn't go to graveyards at night because there were these people that were over there sacrificing cats and performing black mass and all this stuff. And a lot of it was just, it was not true. It was just a lot of stories that just took off, and a lot of local pastors, would speak out against this. Devil worship and all this stuff, and rock music was sending you to hell and all this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There really wasn't a lot of truth to it, but everybody kind of bought into it at that time. This sounds like the same thing here. Okay. So he feels like this kind of idea, this occultism idea, or this interest, in the cult, in the occult, it led to these spirits being able to inhabit the vicarage. Not a bad theory, okay?
No, but
he could not convince the locals that what he did actually worked. That he had been able to do anything there. And he stayed for a year. So after the year, he and his family left Borgvattnet and the Church of Sweden for good. I mean, so he not only left the vicarage, he got out of the church.
Kind of a shame.
Yeah. Like, so, this exorcist decided that he couldn't beat the haunted vicarage, and he's done with it all. I'm out. I'm leaving the church. Have at it. Let the ghosts have it.
Yeah, if they don't believe you and you did something for it, then that's your job.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can see that being disheartening.
Sure.
But it kind of sucks to have that be your job, and then they're like, nah, you didn't do that. You didn't fix it.
And maybe it was the villagers' disbelief in what he did that allowed the hauntings to continue. Maybe that belief in the hauntings was the energy that fueled them. I don't know. There's a good chance that if the story and the story about the 19-year-old pregnant girl, the details may be off, but it's widely accepted as being true. That a baby is buried there and that there was a young girl that was pregnant there. They don't know 100% if it was a priest that impregnated her, but that is the story. But the core of there having been a baby either stillborn or killed there is essentially believed. You had a mother die during childbirth, so there was some negative energy that would have left a mark there. So maybe the combination of that allowed the energy, but whatever is there seems to be fairly active, and as we were talking about earlier, it seems to have enough energy to move stuff around and pretty well do what it wants. Now, as Adam was talking about at the beginning of the show, you can book a room and stay at the Borgvattnet Vicarage today and have a chance to experience some of this ghostly activity for yourself. But be warned, because some visitors' accounts include that of a ghost, that of a guest who was grabbed by an invisible force and thrown down a staircase and then tossed out onto the lawn.
Tossed out onto the lawn.
Other guests of the bed and breakfast say that there are phantom smells of cooking, issues with electrical equipment during paranormal investigations, and feelings of being grabbed or touched. So again, with this whole physical aspect of this haunting, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
There have been several paranormal investigations. None of them have come up with any definitive evidence. But they've all had experiences similar to this. And, if you can sit through a video of heavy accented English, if you're a native English speaker, you can watch. It's tough. It's tough, man. I'm like, they're not pronouncing words like I do. I'm trying to figure out what they're exactly they're saying, but there are videos of paranormal investigations done by Swedish paranormal investigators.
That's how Swedish people feel about the way we've just pronounced all this stuff.
They're like, can you believe these two hillbillies are absolutely butchering our language?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we apologize.
Yeah. I apologized up top.
We do the best we can. But yeah, I'll be honest, Adam. I'm shocked that we did not come across this place sooner.
Yeah, I am too, really.
And, I came across it and just flipping through videos, and I thought, huh, and started to look into it. And I was like, yeah, this place looks pretty cool. And I was like, yeah, I bet Adam can't pronounce any of these Swedish words. So, but hell, I can't either. So it doesn't really matter. But, tell us what you guys think. This is definitely one of the most haunted places in Sweden. I don't think we've talked about any other ones. But maybe another story that we don't, or maybe even, I've never looked to see if we've got listeners in Sweden. I know we've got listeners all over the world, but I've never checked to see if we specifically have any in Sweden. Maybe you've been there or something like that. Let us know. And the best place to do that is in our Facebook group. It's called The Graveyard. It's thousands of people. It's just a lot of fun. People sharing great stories, and nobody's there to make fun of you. We just all want to hear these really incredible experiences. Don't forget to go to our website, which is graveyardpodcast.com. And there you can find links to purchase Graveyard Tales merchandise. So, hey, if you need that Graveyard Tales coffee mug or T-shirt or baby onesie for that member of the graveyard on your Christmas list, now's a great time to pick that up. So go over there and check it out. Don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes. It brings us up the charts, but it makes it easier for people to find the show. So until next time, we'll save you a seat in the graveyard.
See you soon.